Greetings, friends, family, and survivors. First nice day we've had in about a week. It keeps spitting snow every other day. And last night it didn't freeze. I think it was 34 last night. So it's been kind of hard on sprouting stuff. We're trying to sprout some tree seeds there. But today it's probably 50 degrees, and that's a happy thing. I've got an awful lot of work to do in here. Yep, gonna have to swap out this inverter for a new one and then rebuild this one because the fans are stuck on. Change out all 5 BMSs for programmable type. I have those as well. And also this battery box is insulated and it's got a heater, so the thermal loop or the environment control loop on the Tesla batteries is right here. There's a reservoir here with triethylene glycol. It's got a 50-watt heating element in it and a pump and a controller here and a thermocouple here. And so last winter when it got down below zero outside, this heater for the lithium batteries came on twice, only twice. The rest of the time the shed stayed warm enough, but when we started dipping down below zero, it did come on a couple of times, so it's doing its job. The other issue would be, since these are really well insulated now, that will keep ambient temperature from causing them to rise. But the problem is it can't get rid of the heat because it's trapped in this insulated box. So the scenario would be is if we're running an air conditioner, let's say we get 100-degree weather again, which I guess is very, very rare. But if we had 100-degree weather and we're running the air conditioner in the house and all this solar equipment's making heat, this shed gets warmer and warmer and warmer. So the possibility of when you do charge the lithium batteries, you pick up a degree, probably, I think, from by the time they're charged at 9 in the morning. I don't recognize anything heating up, but it is possible. So I did a little bit of a test. I turned all the solar breakers off and I waited till about 11 o'clock. And then I threw all the breakers on at the same time. It was still a cloudy day, but I was putting 140 amps in the batteries, and the system's capable of 180 amps in the batteries. So at 140 amps, I had a 5-degree temperature rise. So that's telling me that if you throw a whole lot of current on the batteries, a 5-degree rise isn't a lot of resistance at all compared to lead acid, but it is noticeable. And if I had a situation where ambient temperature in here were causing the temperature of the battery to rise day by day, and I can't cool it off because this is boxed in. So let's say I finally, 3 or 4 days out, 100-degree weather, my battery temperature's at 85 degrees, then I could see a 1-degree temperature rise per day is eventually going to get me in trouble. I'll get up over the threshold where I want to go. So I'd like to keep the batteries at 65 degrees. They'll last the longest. They're 63.5 right now. So we're going to put a splitter manifold in here and bury a ground loop. So we'll use a thermal cooling. So I've got 25 feet of metal tubing we'll bury in the ground. And I know 30 inches down, the soil stays at 55 degrees, 53 to 55 degrees. I'm probably not going to be able to bury it that deep, but I'm guessing all summer long at 17 inches deep, which is as deep as I can get it down when I hit the rocks. It's moist down there, it's right on the clay layer, and I'm thinking in the shade it's probably going to be around 55 degrees. So I can use that to cool the batteries down. A 25-foot loop constantly exposed to that moist soil in the shade is definitely going to pull these batteries down. In fact, I doubt the pump will run more than 5 minutes and turn off. And then if I ever did start to heat the batteries up, all I have to do is, this is the winter location for heating, this one's for cooling. If I just pull that plug and plug it in right there, throw 3 valves on the manifold, and then the cooling loop is working. So that's what I've got to do, hopefully before it gets warm, which it isn't going to be anytime soon. So I'm going to need to head back to the other homestead and pick up a whole bunch of lumber and the tractor so I can get this grading done. And I had to load a 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive Suburban on this, and that boat winch wouldn't do it. I couldn't pull the Suburban up the ramp with that boat winch. And we did it with the boat winch and a come along, and it took about an hour, and it was a lot of work. So cut that off of there. This trailer we never bought it to haul vehicles. We bought it to the tractor, and the tractor drives itself up there. But it seems like we're using it more and more with people here that have vehicles that break down a lot. So a friend of mine who has one of these trailers, he broke the control box off of it. Something hit it and it cracked it. So he just, bought a new winch. I asked him if I could buy the old one from him. He says, well, you can have it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the control box. So I've got all of the solenoids and all of that stuff. So I bought a new Carlon box, and I'll just mount the solenoids in a Carlon box and bolt it down here. I got to build a battery box, and that'll be a whole lot easier for dragging vehicles up onto the trailer. I had some 2-inch, very thin wall, but I had some 2-inch angle iron, so I boxed it twice to get it high enough to get over, so the fair lead would get over that. And I used a little wire welder, and it seemed to run really just very well on the solar system, but the only circuit breaker I had to plug it into was a 15 amp, and I kept popping the 15 amp, so I went ahead and got one of the generators out. I've got a little 4,000 watt inverter generator that's got idle control and start fob, so it's kind of cool. You just hit the button and it starts the generator. When you're done, just remotely turn it off, and it handled. I was able to weld this without any problem. Got plenty of penetration at about 75% of its ampacity, so it seemed to work pretty good. It shouldn't be a whole lot of pull on that, although I'm sure that'll hold that 12,000 pound in a dead strain. But you're just rolling vehicles up onto the trailer that hopefully have wheels, so it shouldn't see a whole lot of use. In fact, the only use that winch has ever seen is just rolling dead weight, rolling cars up. So I think it's in pretty good shape. So there's the solenoid box. I just broke the lid off, and it'll all fit in there. I got some new SO strain release. I'll just drill some holes in that and make it all watertight. I'll just reuse the remote control. Seems to work fine, so that should work. I have this Hobart handler I've set up for inner shield right now, and it takes a lot of current. It's a transformer type, and it takes quite a bit. It wants 30 amps, 120 volts, and that's hard to find, a 30 amp circuit. I do have one here, but that'll pretty much use that whole inverter if I did that. So I got one of these from Harbor Freight, and this is an SCR type. That one's a transformer with rectifiers, and this one is silicon controlled rectifiers, so a whole lot more efficient use of the power. So I was able to burn in plenty deep. Oh, I had a long ways to go. I was at G, and it'll go all the way up to J. So I was wire at 7 and power at G, and it was, if I didn't move fairly quickly, it'd burn right through 1/8 inch. So I imagine 1/4 inch is going to be somewhere around J, but I think it'll be just fine. And it seems to run fine on the inverter, the Magnum. The problem was the breaker that I had it plugged into was just too small. So Carol and I have the cross fence ready, and I was pounding in some ground rods for the shock box for the cross vents. And apparently my back and neck didn't like it, so it had me down for over a week. And so I just got a call yesterday. They've approved the MRI, and I've got a nerve conduction test coming up next week sometime. See if I can get some answers, but one thing for sure is digging post holes and slamming on a T-post driver. Those days are over. It's just not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. So Carol seems to be able to do it pretty well. So she drove these posts in, and all I did is dig that wood post over there, somewhere over there, to hang the shock box on, and went to drive in some ground rods. And not a happy thing. So I have broken my back a total of 5 times, but 3 times in the thoracic spine, and that's where the trouble is, and I just can't handle the jarring, so I'm going to give it up. Now, you'll finally wise up when you have no choice, right? Anyway, we're doing really well. Carol is doing well, and hope everybody else is well, and keep looking up. I know it seems like really crazy times, but Jesus told us these things would take place so that we wouldn't be fearful. And he said, when you see these things come to pass, look up and rejoice, for your redemption draws nigh. Have a blessed night.